No joke here for the beginning of this episode. I would just like to take a moment of silence to honor Chadwick Boseman. Now, I spoke a little bit about my thoughts on the film Black Panther in a previous video on the earlier version of this channel. In that video, I talked about the fact that I thought it was largely a fantastic film, with a very problematic ending for me. Let me explain. You see, I believe the real reason why the first three phases of the MCU did incredibly well at the box office, and why they were able to bring so much joy to people who watched the films, is because they went against the current grain of history. For approximately 2.5 hours, you could watch a film and let it pull you up out of the despondency of your existence. They reintroduced heroes to us when we needed them the most. Black Panther, the hero, was no exception to this. King T'Challa, played by Chadwick Boseman, grew up right in front of our very eyes in between Civil War and Endgame. He showed us that, as difficult as it can be, leadership must emerge out of honor, forgiveness, and understanding. You'll recall that at first, T'Challa hates Bucky, the Winter Soldier, for the part that Bucky plays in the death of T'Challa's father, T'Chaka. However, by the third phase of the MCU, the two men are fighting side by side. It's truly a wonderful sight. In fact, T'Challa goes as far as to open up his home to Bucky, to give him a place from which he can begin to forgive himself. And that brings me to my main and possibly only real problem with the Black Panther film. You see, Killmonger should never have been allowed to die in the fashion that he did. In that moment of the film at the end, you needed T'Challa to tell him, "I will not allow you to die like this." With all of the technology in Wakanda, they could have found a way to keep Killmonger there, to offer him a space like they did Bucky, from which he can figure out a pathway to redemption. I'll go as far as to even say I think Marvel Disney should have actually created, instead of the Falcon and Winter Soldier, Killmonger and Winter Soldier. The idea of two men wandering the earth, trying to do good to find pathways for forgiveness for themselves, to me sounds actually quite compelling. Additionally, that would have sent a strong message to people that you can come back from places of darkness, you can be forgiven, and there are pathways out there. Now, obviously, no one could have seen the untimely and tragic death of Chadwick Boseman, but it actually makes me really upset that the franchise had so much promise and that it's going to be difficult, I think, to get it back on track. So the question is, what do they do about this? You can't let the Black Panther franchise just go nowhere. But what's your story? Now, there are credible rumors out there that Killmonger might actually come back. I think this is probably the most ideal way to continue the storyline and create some sense of continuity. One comic book storyline is that Madame Slay works with the Mandarin in order to bring Killmonger back from the dead. That could work. Let's just forget about the problematic introduction of the Mandarin in Iron Man 3. As a matter of fact, let's just forget about Iron Man 3. Now, it's likely that Shuri, the plucky sister of T'Challa, will take over the kingdom. I'm fine with this. I think she has a lot of work to do to learn how to lead, which is actually great. Great character arcs are built on hard work and careful reflection. We saw T'Challa go through the same thing. What I want to talk about here for the rest of this video is how Marvel can't make the same mistake it did the first time around with Killmonger. If you bring back Killmonger this time, it needs to be with redemption in mind. And you need to offer at the same time some way of giving Boseman an honorable exit from the franchise. Now, this second part involving Boseman needs to be done rather carefully, and I think Marvel will do a good job. It should be something along the lines of him sacrificing himself for the kingdom, but I don't think it should be about force or might in battle. I think it should parallel somewhat the death of T'Challa's father, T'Chaka. Remember, T'Chaka tells his son, "For a man who disapproves of diplomacy, you're getting quite good at it." T'Challa should die in an act of diplomacy, as someone who learned the ultimate lesson of leadership the importance of keeping a kingdom safe through words. In this sense, he would join other great kings in the MCU. For example, Odin. You'll recall that Odin has to teach his son Thor about the importance of diplomacy, of preferring the pen to the sword, or the hammer, I guess. So I'm going to propose a kind of storyline here. I don't think it's particularly thorough, but I think it offers the major themes that I would like to see Black Panther, sort of touch upon. Here it goes. What I would like to see is Killmonger come back first as a villain, as a man in search of revenge against Wakanda. Now, this can be done under Madame Slay, the Mandarin, or someone else. But he needs to be working under another villain at this point, someone who's much higher up in the chain. I want to see Killmonger walk right into Wakanda with no weapons, just his resurrected self. And as an emissary, he's been given the order to not kill anyone. You see, this time Killmonger is not acting on his own. He's acting on behalf of someone else. Killmonger's mission at this point is to simply let the Wakandans know that their destruction is at hand and that there's nothing that they can do about it. A larger army is going to be coming fairly soon. You see, that's the essence of real power and fear. It's not sneak attacks or anything else. It's showing yourself out in public without care, without any regard, knowing that there is nothing the other person can do about it. Finally, the Wakandans are able to subdue Killmonger, and he's placed in a holding cell. The people are obviously frightened. They don't know what to do. Everyone is expecting Queen Shuri, expert in Wakandan technology, to come up with some amazing new force to protect them from the oncoming attack. But she's overwhelmed. She feels like everyone is staring at her, but she doesn't know what to do about it. I think something like this would give Shuri a really good beginning to a character arc. Now, Shuri feels like she's alone in all of this, that she can't tell any of her subjects that she's really afraid because she feels like they won't be able to understand and they won't look to her as the leader that she wants to be. So, she begins visiting Killmonger every day, talks to him. Killmonger doesn't expect anything from her. He hates her. And there's something pure about that to Shuri. There's no pressure to be queen to him because he's not a subject. She spends time with him, shows him her humanity, gives him reasons to believe that he needs to embrace his own legacy as a Wakandan. One of those visits, she shows Killmonger videos of his father when he was a Wakandan, serving under T'Chaka. He's an honorable man at this point, turned by internal struggles just like Killmonger. Shuri tells Eric that his father was given the opportunity to do the right thing, but his anger and resentment would not allow him to do so. This prompts Killmonger to think about his own place in the world as well. After a while, he starts to look forward to their discussions. He even begins to offer her advice about leadership based on his own past experiences in special forces. Finally, the day arrives. Wakanda is attacked by this giant force that Eric promised. During the melee, Shuri is captured. When Killmonger finds out, he begs to be let go. He wants to go out and he wants to help her. He eventually finds his way out of the holding cell, goes out, finds Shuri, and helps her escape. But in doing so, she's hurt. Now, her Wakandan technology can help heal her. That's not a problem. But in the meantime, the Wakandan kingdom is losing ground in the battle. Just as things look like they're about to get completely out of hand, they get the help that they needed. The Winter Soldier comes back to his adopted home, and he's brought his friend, Captain Falcon America. I still don't know what to do with this. The two men are able to help lead the Wakandan army back to a stalemate. But if they don't get more help, they're going to lose ground again. So, Shuri makes her first really difficult decision as leader for her people. She offers the Black Panther suit to Killmonger. Now, at first, Killmonger wants nothing to do with it. There's something about it that's just sacred. He doesn't want to touch it. He doesn't think he's worthy of donning that suit. But she insists that he is, and that he's a Wakandan, and that he can do great good. She believes in him. So he reluctantly puts on the suit, goes out, kicks butt, they win, everything's great. Now, at the end of the film, Killmonger attempts to give the Black Panther suit back to Shuri and to the people. But Shuri instead offers him the chance to stay, to be redeemed, to fight for Wakanda, and don the Black Panther suit for good. Killmonger bows before Queen Shuri and vows to bring honor to her, to T'Challa, to the Black Panther suit, and to the people of Wakanda. Okay, now I admit that this storyline is not thorough, but I think it provides at least some way back to what made the MCU important to us in the first 3 phases. The important thing for me is that Killmonger receives the chance to redeem himself that he always should have had. Additionally, I think you do justice to T'Challa, to Chadwick Boseman, as well here. Shuri will need to reflect upon her brother's leadership qualities. It's only because her brother went through this that she has the strength that she needs to make the decision to give the suit to Killmonger. Now, you're never going to replace Chadwick Boseman, either the way he acted in the franchise or just the man that he was in the world. But I think you can honor how much this franchise meant to him by doing what it did so well from the beginning. Act as a beacon of hope to anyone who's looking for one.